And we're back for our UFC Fight Night Garcia versus Onama full card predictions. You know, there are fight cards that are ones for the ages, and there are ones, you know, that just live in, you know, all-time legacy. And this is what UFC Fight Night Garcia versus Onama means to me. It doesn't get bigger than this. The world is watching this Saturday night. I cannot wait. It's a grand spectacle from the UFC Apex. Again, main event, David Onama, Steve Garcia, good fight. Glad Garcia is finally getting the recognition. This is number 13 versus number 14, I believe, in the rankings. 13 total fights from the UFC Apex this Saturday. I'll get this out right now. I'm recording this video right before UFC 321 with Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gahn. I don't think that card's going to get mentioned too much in this video, other than you know, maybe the heavyweight division in the Delija Cortes-Acosta fight. I'm just saying that now because I'm getting this video out right after UFC 321. So if you're seeing this now, obviously it's right after the Aspinall Gahn fight. So I am recording this video ahead of time. Don't know what happened yet at 321. I assume Tom Aspinall is still the world champion. If not, what the hell? You know, let's do it. Garcia, Onama, full card predictions. Again, if Tom Aspinall lost, hell froze over maybe? I don't know. Anyways, folks, before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more weekly UFC content here on the channel. On Thursday, we're going to post our best bets for this UFC Vegas card, so make sure to lock in for that. Okay, first of 13 fights, main channel, Greedo plays, NFL, NBA, MLB best bets. Go make sure to check those out. Okay, on to the first of our 13 fights from the UFC Apex. You know, I think this fight has, like, Stephan Bonner versus Forrest Griffin type potential. Can't wait for it, man. This is, like, the type of fight that might revolutionize the sport. It might change the sport forever. I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch the sport the same because I cannot wait for Alencar versus Ariane Carnelossi. I can't wait for it. Jokes aside, like, Carnelossi can have fun fights. Like, I remember Carnelossi had the first ever fight coming out of the pandemic in Jacksonville, Florida, and a very fun one against Liang Na. Went out there and got a second round TKO win. Now, Carnelossi's coming off a DQ victory where she technically beat Piera Rodriguez. It was a weird fight because why was Piera Rodriguez headbutting Ariane Carnelossi? Why? She was winning the fight. She was dominating the fight too. She was taking her down. She knocked down Carnelossi. It made no sense. And Piera Rodriguez started, you know, headbutting her, and she lost because obviously Piera Rodriguez should be 5-1 in the UFC, but she said, "No, I'm just gonna headbutt the woman." Makes no sense. So Carnelossi's back. He's taking on Alencar. Alencar, one of the more interesting UFC signings because she had a draw in her Contender Series bout. She won 2 rounds and then looked like maybe the worst fighter ever in the 3rd round against Stephanie Luciano. But she got her a rematch against Luciano in the UFC, and she lost by decision. She's a 2-1 UFC fighter, though, beating Ryan Dos Santos by split decision. You know, I'll give you, you know, you can win a prize if you remember 5 things about Alencar versus Ryan Dos Santos. Exactly. Alencar wins it by split decision. Does she really win? I don't know. A lot of missed takedown attempts. I actually don't know how Alencar won that fight. The fight's horrible. Don't go back and rewatch it. I had to rewatch it on 2 times speed. Anyways, lost to Luciano and then beats Vanessa Demopoulos by unanimous decision. Went out there and out-grappled Demopoulos, going Alencar. If I can say anything about her, it is that grappling game is pretty solid, and that's really the approach she's going to have in an Ariane Carnelossi fight. Carnelossi's last 2 fights, she got beat on the feet and got beat on the ground. Now, she had to fight Lupi Godinez 2 fights ago, which is obviously a very difficult outing. Godinez is well within the top 7 of the weight class and, you know, should be close to a title fight. Carnelossi just got out-grappled in that fight. In the Piera Rodriguez fight, she's getting beat on the feet. She's getting beat on the ground. I don't love the wrestling out of Carnelossi. The only fight that I've seen her be all that successful with that is in the bout against Estela Nunes. And I look at Carnelossi, she's got a 14% takedown defense rate in the UFC. I mean, every takedown that Lupi wanted, she got. And I get it, Godinez is a better pure grappler or pure wrestler than Alencar. Alencar might have better jiu-jitsu skills. But my goodness, I mean, if Lupi's going 8 for 8, I believe Rodriguez went 1 for 2. So opponents all time, I think, are 8 or 9 for 10, I think. That doesn't equate to 14%. 10 for 11, maybe? That doesn't equate to that either. I don't know. Regardless, Carnelossi doesn't stuff takedowns. That's her thing. She doesn't stuff takedowns. I don't love that. Now, Alencar, though, and I know Carnelossi kind of has a gas tank. Like, she can go deep into fights. Alencar really, you know, falls off a cliff. And she makes up for that loss of cardio or just lack of cardio and stamina by just grappling at the end of fights. But I mean, this is a 35-year-old fighter who shares a nickname with Jake Paul. Actually, I don't know if Jake Paul still has the problem child nickname. Isn't he like El Gallo something? I don't know. But wait, hold on. Your nickname's the problem child and you're 35. Like, shouldn't you be like the problem woman now? I don't know. I'm gonna go Ariane Carnelossi. Yeah, but should I though? She can't stuff a takedown. See, like this is Forrest Griffin, Stephan Bonner. Like it's just gonna be an all-out war. Who knows who's gonna win? Oh goodness. Because Carnelossi's a better striker. Alencar, though, might be able to get takedowns, but do I really rely on the grappling game of Alencar? She did just ground Vanessa Demopoulos the entire fight. No, I'm still gonna go Carnelossi. Yeah, I'm going to go Carnelossi. I'm going to go Carnelossi by decision. I think she'll be able to scramble until Alencar takes her down. I think, I don't think she's just going to get stuck on her back the entire fight. Maybe I'm wrong there. I wouldn't bet on this fight. This fight just got put together as well. But I think Carnelossi should be able to win. I don't like Alencar taking the fight on short notice because I know what her gas tank can potentially be. So I'm going to go Carnelossi by decision. Am I confident? No, don't bet on the fight. Next up, we go on to a matchup here between Phil Rowe and Seok Hyun Ko in the welterweight division. Both of these fighters coming off victories as Phil Rowe's coming off a big win over Angelosa by TKO, and Seok Hyun Ko coming off a win over Oban Elliott in his first fight in the UFC. You know what? Beating Oban in your first UFC fight is impressive. Ko is a pretty big dog in that fight, and he found a way to go out there and pick up the victory. For Phil Rowe, a return to glory, I guess, in his last battle against Angelosa after back-to-back decision L's to Neil Magny and Jake Matthews, who ended up fighting each other, and Magny won because, of course, he's inevitable. Rowe bounced back and got a big victory over Angelosa. Both guys exchanged knockdowns in their fight in Atlanta, Georgia, but Phil Rowe ended up getting the better of that fight, again winning it by third round late TKO. He now gets Seung Hyun Ko, who is 1-0 in the UFC, obviously with that win over Oban. It was a grappling heavy attack out of Ko. I didn't really want to get involved too much in the striking game because, well, he exploited the bad wrestling, I guess, of sorts from Oban. And Ko's victory on the Contender Series win over Igor Cavalcante, went out there and won the fight by unanimous decision. Again, Ko's not bad. It's just I think he should be able to take down Phil Rowe. I've seen so many fighters look for takedowns against Rowe and be successful. Angelosa, Jason Witt took down Phil Rowe quite a bit. Orion Kosi, Jake Matthews. Everyone kind of finds takedowns against Rowe. His striking game is not horrible, and yes, he has the capability of knocking you out. Hell, he put together a 3 knockout in a row streak. That's one hell of a way to put it, but he knocked out Orion Kosi, knocked out Jason Witt, knocked out Nico Price in 3 straight fights, and then got rewarded with a Neil Magny fight in Jacksonville, Florida, ended up losing it by split decision, and then obviously the Matthews fight lost, had the Angelosa fight, and got back in the win column. But to me, stylistically, this fight does favor Ko quite a bit. Because, I mean, all he really needs to do is wrestle. Now, Phil Rowe is a huge guy for welterweight. He's 6'3" at 170 pounds, and he's got an 80.5 reach advantage. Well, no, he doesn't have 80.5 inches on him, but he's, got an 80.5 inch reach. Ko's coming back at you at a 71-inch reach. So 8.5 inches of reach Phil Rowe has on Ko. But that doesn't really matter when you're, again, a wrestle-heavy guy. I mean, that's stylistically, again, how both guys are built. I think this favors Ko quite a bit because he should just be able to wrestle Phil Rowe this entire time. And again, he's going to have to close distance. He's going to have to be able to, dive on legs and whatnot. But I think he should be able to find a way. I think Ko should be able to win. I think Rowe's striking can be dangerous. He gets hit quite a bit as well, as we saw Angelosa drop him. And I get it, Losa at his best. Early in fights can be pretty solid. But I think the wrestling heavy attack out of Ko is going to really hurt Rowe in this fight. I mean, if Ko is able to do it to Oban Elliott, I assume he's going to be able to do this to Phil Rowe too. I mean, this guy cashed a plus 360 dog in his last fight against Elliott over in Azerbaijan. He should be able to find a way to take down Phil Rowe, who has struggled defending takedowns against, again, Losa, Witt, Kosi. It's been a theme throughout the career. Gabe Green out wrestled his way to a victory. Actually, no, he knocked down Phil Rowe a couple times. Yeah, I'm not sold on Rowe, man. His body work's not great, and Ko 1-0 in the UFC with a big victory as a dog. Give me the South Korean fighter in this fight. Seok Hyun Ko will beat Phil Rowe in his second fight in the UFC, and he will get it done by unanimous decision. On to our third fight of the night as we move to the women's weight classes. Again, we go to the strawweight division. So we have a new champion in the strawweight division, and now we've got Montserrat Conejo Ruiz taking on Alice Ardelean. Loser goes home fight. It's a loser gets cut from the promotion. Maybe winner gets cut from the promotion as well. Not to be harsh, This is as low level as you can get. I'm so serious. And oh, Alice Ardelean's coming off a victory. She is. Her record's 10-7. 10 wins and 7 losses is absurd. She beat Ryan dos Santos, who is also like the lowest level fighter you can find. No disrespect, these are professional fighters. They're in the UFC. Where did the UFC find these two? It was always a weird sighting when they got Canello, and she's literally still in the UFC because of her first fight, where she beat Cheyenne Vlismas, or Cheyenne Bays, or Cheyenne Dolidze, whatever the hell her name is now, where Montserrat Canello literally won a fight because Cheyenne Vlismas did not know how to get out of a head and arm. All she did the entire fight was head and arm, step over, throw, okay, I'm staying here the entire fight, let's hold on, punch, 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 just rapid punches on the ground. But no, holding on to the head and arm the entire fight. And Vlismas had no idea how to get out, and Vlismas did more fighting after the fight ended than the fight actually happened in the fight. And that, guys, that fight was on a Brunson Holland Apex card in March of 2021. And that's still what, Montserrat Ruiz is banking on, in the UFC. Because I don't know why they liked her so much. They gave her a fight against Lemos next. They gave her a fight against Amanda Lemos in the Apex, and she got knocked out in 30 seconds. She then fought Jacqueline Amorim, and Amorim, like expected, went out there and just shut her down. Significant strike count was 86-6 in favor of Amorim. And then Ruiz fought Eduarda Maura, and Maura outstruck her 57-5. And it just, guys, Ruiz is the lowest level fighter you can find. Now, Ardelean, right, 1-2 in the UFC. Her 1-2 is not nearly as bad as Montserrat Ruiz. Okay, maybe I shouldn't be as harsh here on, is Ardelean Romanian? Yes, on the Romanian fighter. A 10-7 record is ugly, it is. Actually had a fight against Zhang Wei Li back in 2016 in Top FC, and fought Diana Belbizia and lost as well in 2014 too. Her UFC run though, you could actually argue she should be 3-0. I don't think she beat Shannon Bannon. It was a difficult and close fight. Damage-based scoring. I thought Bannon probably won rounds 2 and 3 in that one. You look at the Melissa Martinez fight. Ardelean, does she win that? Probably. So I don't know. Again, that is what it is. I think Martinez got all 3 rounds in that fight. I don't know. It's a weird scorecard because Ardelean, yes, Martinez is doing way more damage. Ardelean is just outstriking her, and we've seen Martinez be kind of bad in the UFC other than that Ardelean fight. Whatever. Again, I'm not going to nitpick out a scorecard on that one. And then Ardelean beat Ryan dos Santos. It was very one-sided. Ardelean just put it on her in one fight of the night. So you know what? She should be able to put it on Montserrat Ruiz. Guys, again, we were sold a false bag of goods, I believe, on Ruiz. She was 1-1 in her last 2 fights before she got into the UFC. She lost to Danielle Taylor on Invicta, and then, lucked into a victory over Vlismas because Vlismas did not understand the concept of getting out of a head and arm. Or, it was so telegraphed, too, when Ruiz went to it. You get her one time, sure. The second time, really? Again, this is Wrestling 101. Steps over for a head and arm, or a judo throw, circle out. And instead, this is what they teach you in middle school wrestling. Vlismas, she gets put in the head and arm throw, and she tries to sneak out the back door. That just makes it tighter, and she gets thrown again. That's all Ruiz knows how to do. We saw that on the regional scene when she fought bums, and okay, she's gotten finished in 3 consecutive fights. I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm taking Alice Ardelean to get a finish in this fight. I think Ardelean finds a way to a 3rd round TKO. Ruiz has just gotten broken in every single fight she's had. She breaks as the fight goes on. The reason why, she went 3 rounds against Vlismas is because she didn't do anything. She was on top doing, I'm actually replicating her punches. She was doing that. Oh, God, that looks horrible. No. Oh, no, why did I do that? No. Oh, I did not. I was trying to replicate. I did it again. Hammer fists. Oh my goodness. The things the Montserrat Ruiz, Alice Ardelean fight has me doing. Oh, no. I should not. Okay. You know what I mean, though. She was just throwing hammer fists over and over and over again. So she didn't get tired in that fight. I've watched her just getting broken down every single fight she's had after. Ardelean can wrestle her too. It's in the back pocket. I saw Ardelean wrestle Shannon Bannon quite often. So wherever Ardelean wants it, she's going to win. I think eventually she will find a finish. I'm going 3rd round TKO here for the Romanian. And Alice Ardelean, I believe she's from, is she Fusion XL? Fusion XL's Alice Ardelean goes up there and gets a 3rd round TKO victory over Montserrat Canello Ruiz. It's time for her UFC stint to be over. Now we get potentially a number 1 contenders fight in the bantamweight division, just buried on the prelims of an Apex card to show you what the UFC thinks of this weight class. I'm a little surprised, because the UFC actually does pretty good promotion for Norma Dumont. Now, it's not her fighting style of why they do press for her and they promote her, but, you know, if you just do a quick Google search on Norma Dumont, you can probably figure out why the UFC promotes her. So I'm surprised this is a prelim bout. They've been pretty kind to Dumont, putting her on big spots and big cards quite often. I mean, she was on the Sphere, and she won. She beat Irina Aldana, and then they subject her to this? I mean, she was supposed to fight former champion Raquel Pennington on this year's Noche card in San Antonio. Would have been a very winnable fight for Dumont, in my opinion. But now she gets Ketlen Vieira, and she's a favorite to win, -135 for Dumont, +115 for Vieira. I find it hilarious on Tapology. Norma's a 91% favorite. Like, 91% of people picking the fight on Tapology are picking Norma Dumont. Now, are they picking Norma Dumont because of Norma Dumont? I don't know. Or she's just popular. I get that, too. Dumont should just beat down Ketlen Vieira, in my opinion. Guys, Ketlen Vieira has done nothing impressive recently. She went on her run where she beat Miesha Tate, she beat Holly Holm, and arguably, she should have fought for a championship after that, but then she ran into Raquel Pennington, lost, beat Penny Kianzad, and then ran into Kayla Harrison. And obviously, I mean, you know what happens in a Kayla Harrison-Ketlen Vieira fight. Harrison dominated en route to winning the world championship. Vieira bounced back in her last fight, beating Macy Chasson, but I mean, it's just one of those very uneventful fights where Vieira took her down, just held her down. And normally, again, like, that was the Norma Dumont route early in her UFC run. Billed as a very good grappler, who got knocked out with Megan Anderson, oddly enough, in her first fight, but a fighter who's gonna kind of lay on you and just, you know, lay and pray. But as of late, man, look at the Norma Dumont-Irene Aldana fight. Hey. I mean, pure war mode, Norma Dumont. Right in Aldana's face the entire fight, pressing forward, throwing everything at her. Norma Dumont in a 15-minute fight threw 309 strikes. That's unheard of for the women's weight classes. So it shows, okay, Dumont's got more than just a grappling game and a wrestling game, because she tried to take down Aldana. She was just unsuccessful in that fight. She went 0 for 5 on takedowns against Aldana and was forced to go into straight striking mode. Now, the Dumont striking game, it's getting better, but like 2 fights ago, she fought Drain Duranemy and won. Nothing to do, obviously, with the striking game, which makes sense. And obviously, I mean, if you're fighting a GDR fight as a wrestler, grappler, well, you're just going to take her down and hold her down. That's what Dumont did. So when I look at a Dumont-Vieira fight, I believe Dumont's able to stuff takedowns out of Ketlen Vieira. I personally believe that. I think if Vieira looks for anything on the ground, I think Dumont should be able to keep it standing. And in a striking fight, I like Norma. I know Ketlen's had it very success striking-wise against Miesha Tate. I don't think she beat Holly Holm. Thought that was a crappy decision. But I've seen Vieira have limited success striking-wise. I mean, I remember the Yana Santos fight where she couldn't get anything going striking-wise, so she went to pure grappling the entire fight. I remember Irene Aldana knocked her out. Again, that's like 5 years ago now, 6 years ago now. But Vieira's striking has always been a little bit and not even saying Norma Dumont is world-class striking-wise, but Norma Dumont is a better striker, in my opinion, than Ketlen Vieira. And I don't know if she's going to go into straight war mode all the time like she did against Irene Aldana in her last fight, but she should be able to win in the striking exchanges against Vieira. Dumont is older. She's 35. Vieira is 34, and it's kind of now or never for the Dumont title aspirations. But I would think, and I know, again, this is on a prelims of an Apex card the UFC doesn't care about, but I would think the winner of this fight should probably be next for the belt. We know at some point in time Kayla Harrison's going to be fighting Amanda Nunes for the World Championship. I don't know if that's going to be at the White House in June. I don't know if that's going to be sooner, maybe on the Paramount card in January. First Paramount card on January. I don't know, but I think, yeah, you kind of have to give the next title shot to Norma. If Vieira wins, I guess it kind of has to be Vieira too. Guys, this is 3 versus 4 in the weight class. I mean, this division is so thin. Every women's division is thin other than 125. 125 is deep to the point where Natalia Silva is still not getting a title shot. But, I mean, 135, Juliana Payne is the number 1 contender. Then it's Raquel Pennington, Ketlen Vieira, Norma Dumont, Yana Santos, Irene Aldana, Macy Chasson. Aline Perez might get a title fight soon because of how she fights, and, you know, I guess the UFC kind of likes her and she twerks after her fights. I don't know. Like, 135 is a mess, but I think Dumont definitely beats Vieira. I mean, what does Ketlen Vieira do all that better than Norma? I really can't name it. I think, I think Dumont doesn't get taken down, but I don't expect Norma to try to take her down. I think Dumont, after her last fight, no one thought she was going to go into a fight with Irene Aldana and just outstrike her. And that's exactly what she did. Aldana's always been a good striker. Yeah, Amanda pieced her up on the feet. But if you want to play MMA math, I mean, Irene Aldana did knock out Ketlen Vieira, and Ketlen Vieira, or Norma Dumont beat up Aldana on the feet. I know there's 6 years of separation there, and you can make that same argument about, Chasson who beat Dumont and Vieira who beat Chasson, but to me, this is trending in the right direction for Norma Dumont, and I think, you'd be hard-pressed to not give her the world title fight next. So give me Norma Dumont by unanimous decision. I think give her a title fight in Brazil. You could do, I don't think Amanda's going to be fighting, even if she beats Harrison, but so I bet should probably just mean Norma Dumont's next fight will be against Kayla Harrison, regardless of if that's a vacant title fight or for Harrison defending the championship. I believe Norma Dumont will be next for the world title. Give me her to beat Ketlen Vieira by unanimous decision. We move on now to a matchup that just got put together as well. Last second replacement fight here for one Cedricus Dumas, as Dumas will be fighting Dante Johnson in this fight. Dumas has been the subject of some iffy behavior, I will say, to say the least. I don't know if this was real or not. I think it was real. Couldn't have his last fight because he still had his ankle monitor on, which is nice. Actually, those 2 fights ago against Jackson McVeigh, he had the fight against Zach Reese where, he got the groin shot, so the fight ended in 51 seconds. Anyways, though, Dumas is back, and he's going to be fighting Dante Johnson on short notice. So Dante Johnson becomes the first fighter, or actually not the first fighter because, never mind. He becomes one of the first fighters from last season's Contender Series season to get a fight in the UFC. Originally supposed to fight Nick Klein, which kind of goes to show what they want out of Dante Johnson. They wanted him to get rid of Klein in the UFC, and he was going to. Obviously, Klein pulls out of the fight, and now instead we have Cedricus Dumas in this spot. But for Dante Johnson, beat Darian Abbey in his fight on the Contender Series, went right through the guy, knocked him out in the first round, and that's what you're going to get out of Dante Johnson, pure boxer. I mean, that's what I've seen out of Johnson outside the UFC. We talked about the Contender Series every single week. That's what we saw on the Contender Series too. He fought at heavyweight on the Contender, but he weighed in at 209 pounds. It's like the whole Nick Maximov way of getting into the UFC. If you remember, Maximov weighed in at 208 and fought at heavyweight and ended up fighting at welterweight or middleweight in the UFC. Same exact thing happened with Dante Johnson. Dante Johnson fights at heavyweight at 209 pounds, beats Darian Abbey, and now is down to 185 in the UFC. It's what I thought. When I was watching Johnson, guy was fighting at 265 in light heavyweight, but always looked really small for even 205. And I thought, under full camp and the right circumstances, he would want to go down to 185. Well, he's gotten into the number one promotion, obviously, in the world. And for the right reasons, Dante Johnson will be fighting at 185 pounds. He's fighting Cedricus Dumas, who is somehow 3-3 in the UFC. It doesn't feel like Dumas is 3-3 in the promotion. Came in, lost to Josh Fremd in his first fight, got guillotined, then beat Cody Brundage, beat Abu Azaitar, lost to Nursultan Ruzbayev, where he got poked in the eye a couple times, and they said, that's a knockout. Okay. Beat Dennis Tululin and then lost to Michal Zolshechek by knockout. Had the ball kicking fight against Zach Reese, and now here we are against Dante Johnson. Should actually be kind of fun because I doubt Dumas wrestles here. Maybe he does, because Dumas has just felt like he's been overmatched on the feet against Ozolshechek and against Ruzboyev for the right reasons, right? Those aren't great stylistic matchups for Dumas, and the UFC isn't really doing him a favor by giving him those fights. In a fight like this against Dante Johnson, I mean, we know what Johnson does. He throws very hard. He's looking to knock you out. Dumas, he does hit hard too, but I would say, again, more of a, I wouldn't call him a technical striker, but he's going to throw, he wants to stay at range more, wants to stay at distance. And you look at this fight, right? I mean, Dante Johnson's 5'8", so it was kind of insane he was fighting at 265 pounds. It was insane he was fighting at 205 pounds. But I mean, just look at the guy. I mean, dude is pretty built. I don't know how much weight there is to cut anymore. And that was, again, weighing in at 209 pounds, really only cutting 20 more pounds to get down to 185. That's not that difficult of a cut for him. He's only 5'9", again, just a lot of muscle on the dude. Taking on Dumas, who's 6'2". Dante Johnson, 74-inch reach. Cedricus Dumas, 79-inch reach. I fully expect Dante Johnson, though, to get on the inside here and find big power shots against Dumas. If you can close distance against Dumas, and if you can really just overwhelm the guy, he really kind of gets affected. And it's just like, I don't know, like you're able to find shots against him on the inside. We saw that in the Ozil Shashek fight. Nurlston, that was weird because, he got poked in the eye a couple times. But Dumas has only beaten low-level guys in the UFC, and I mean real low-level guys. Cody Brundage, very low level. I don't want to say very low level, but low level. Abu Zaitar, post-steroids, was not a good fighter, and Tululin was one of the lower-level guys that the UFC's ever gotten. Dante Johnson, he's a power puncher, now at a natural weight class that should really help him too. He's used to fighting guys who hit hard, and yeah, Dumas hits hard as well, but I mean, Dante Johnson's fought heavyweights. He's fought light heavyweights his entire career. Seeing a guy in Cedric Dumas who hasn't gotten a knockout so far in the UFC shouldn't really concern Johnson. Yes, Dumas has run outside the UFC when he was basically the face of Jorge Masvidal's Icon FC when Masvidal took over the promotion, or was just really the face for the promotion on Fight Pass when they rebranded it. He was great there. He's picking up knockouts left and right. He was main eventing Icon cards against, DeWitt Dixon, who was undefeated at the time. He's not looked good once he's gotten in the UFC, and there's a lot of, again, outside the cage actions out of Cedric Dumas that makes you question, okay, how much is he really preparing for fights? How much is he really training for fights? Don't love that. Dante Johnson is on a win streak right now. He's undefeated, and he's coming off a big one on the Contender Series. I got to go with Johnson here to win his first ever UFC bout, and I believe he will find a knockout victory against Cedric Dumas. Again, Dumas been the center of controversy. I don't know if this is his last UFC fight, but I believe Johnson will go out here and pick up his first win by first round knockout. We move on now to our next bout, and we go to a matchup here between Timmy Cuamba and Chang Ho Lee in the bantamweight division. Chang Ho Lee is a favorite in this fight, if I were to say. Again, there are no odds yet because I am recording this video a little bit early, and some of these fights were just announced as the UFC somewhat scrambled to make this card because, they kind of forget sometimes they have Apex cards, which, I do too, but it's okay. Timmy Cuamba fighting Chang Ho Lee in the bantamweight division. For Timmy Cuamba, he's a 1-2 UFC fighter, had competitive fights against Balaji Oki and Lucas Almeida, lost both of them, and then had a very impressive knockout victory over in Kansas City, Missouri, I believe it was, over Roberto Romero, knocking him out in the second round with a flying knee. Now, he's going to get Chang Ho Lee now, who's 2-0 in the UFC with back-to-back victories over Cortavius Romeus and against Long Jiao in his first fight. Chang Ho Lee was the winner of the first Road to UFC series. Obviously, they had multiple winners for multiple weight classes, but Chang Ho Lee won at 135 pounds, with the finale fight being a big victory over Long Jiao by split decision. Long Jiao, a fighter who ended up in the UFC in his own right. He's 1-2, coming off a loss to Young Yu. But for Chang Ho Lee, this is a fighter who can mix it up. He will grapple. He can strike too. Just an all-around very solid guy. Looking to wrestle though for the most part. He's got a very good top pressure. He'll throw elbows on the ground like he did in his victory over Cortavius Romeus. And for Timmy Cuamba, again, not a bad striker. I mean, we've seen, that victory over Roberto Romero was big time. Lost the Almeida fight, got dropped in that one, and Oki did beat him to the punch every single time, I thought, in their fight, even though, yes, Cuamba did take him to a split decision. I believe Balaji Oki did enough to get the win. Chang Ho Lee, this is going to be a competitive fight, though, with Cuamba and Lee. I believe Cuamba has a striking advantage here. I think he does. And I think Chang Ho Lee obviously has a grappling advantage. We've seen this time in and time out. Chang Ho Lee held his first two victories in the road to the UFC were dominant wrestling-heavy bouts where he went out there, again, shot for takedowns and just looked to control the fight and win it with ground and pound. And that's ultimately what he did in his first two fights in the road to the UFC. And then again, got the Long Jiao fight, won it, and then, won the same exact way against Cortavius Romeus that he did outside the UFC, or at least leading up to his initial UFC fight as well. So I think the pathway for success to Chang Ho Lee is simple. It's do what you continuously have done so far in your effort on your run to the UFC. And for Timmy Cuamba, got to keep the fight standing, got to stay off your back, because once Chang Ho Lee does get you down and once he has that top pressure, he is trouble. Now, for Timmy Cuamba, last fight was at 145 pounds. His entire run at UFC has been actually at 155 in the Oki fight, then down at 145 for Almeida and for Roberto Romero. He's now dropping all the way down to 135, which is a little interesting. I mean, I get it. I know why he fought at 155 against Balaji Oki. Again, try to get, got a fight on short notice, wasn't signed to the UFC. But 145 has always been his weight class. Like, look, outside the UFC, when he was fighting in various regionals, Tough Enough and Icon, he was a 145-pound fighter. When he won in the Contender Series against the Canadian Matteo Vogel, he won by unanimous decision, but he fought at 145. Oki fight 55, Almeida Romero fights at 145. Now you're dropping all the way down to 135. In a fight like this, where you're going to need to be the stronger guy, which it makes sense. Like, this stylistically would make sense because he's coming down from 145 to take on a wrestler, but I don't know how well you're going to be off, it's just a whole cardio perspective too, because you're now cutting 10 more pounds, right? I mean, again, just look at Timmy Cuamba. I mean, do you think he can cut 10 more pounds? I mean, obviously he's going to do it, and he probably will get down to 135 pounds, but for some of these guys, I mean, there's just not much more weight to cut. But Cuamba is going to get down to 135 pounds, and it's like, all right, dude, that's cool. Where's your gas tank going to be at? Especially in a fight like this where, yes, you think you're stronger, you're going to fight off more takedowns this way. That's fine. What happens now when you're on your back and you can't get back up? Or say you do get back up and Chang Ho Lee just dumps you again. That's a problem because, again, it takes all that effort, it takes all that, stamina to rise back up to your feet just to start all over again. It's a continuous process over and over and over again. I don't love that for Cuamba in this fight. Again, stylistically, it makes sense that he's, dropping down at least, so he could, strength-wise, he should be better against Chang Ho Lee because, again, Cuamba is used to fighting bigger guys, but just the stylistic matchup for Cuamba doesn't really result in the best, in my opinion, in this one. Chang Ho Lee can grapple very well, and he's, again, very good with this top pressure. I think Chang Ho Lee eventually gets the finish. That we've seen nothing but the same out of him so far in his UFC run. I think, again, this fight changes once it hits the mat. I'm going to go with the Korean and Chang Ho Lee to finish Timmy Cuamba in the second round by TKO. I'm picking up his third UFC victory, going to 4-0. 3-0 the promotion, 4-0 if you include the road to the UFC fight. So more victories for Chang Ho Lee in the UFC. This should be a big one for him. I think the fight changes again once it hits the ground. Next up, we go on to a matchup, and it is the matchup in the middleweight division, or light heavyweight division, and it is the UFC debut of the Brazilian Kevin Christian. Christian makes his UFC debut after successfully winning his last fight on the Contender Series. Not on the last season, though, the 2024 season of the Contender Series. It's been a whole year since Christian has gone out and fought. Got his contract off a triangle armbar victory over Francisco Mezzo, who is an Italian fighter back in Cage Warriors. But Christian got his contract. This is a guy who, has a good grappling game. He can strike too, but it's been off for a full year. He's massive for the weight class. This is a 6'7" light heavyweight. I could be wrong, but I can't think of a light heavyweight that has been taller in UFC history. Again, if I'm wrong, tell me, but I don't think I am. It's rare you see 6'7" heavyweights, right? I mean, Volkov is listed at 6'7". He's really 6'9" apparently, but, being 6'7" at light heavyweight is interesting. He's taken on Kevin Christian, taking on Billy Elekana, who is 8-2 professionally, 1-1 in the UFC, lost his initial UFC fight, his first UFC fight to Bogdan Guskov. That's a tough fight, man. Guskov went out there and submitted him in the second round. Bogdan's getting a bout with Jan Blachowicz at the end of the year, so it really goes to show, like, again, it was on paper, and yes, in the fight itself, Elekana was just outmatched. His last fight, though, picking up a big victory over Ibo Aslan, who might not be that good, but, Elekana went out there, won a decision. It's a boring decision. Nothing happens. No one really throws punches, but Elekana does just enough, and he gets the victory. So he's 1-1 in the UFC, and for Kevin Christian, right, he's got an 80-inch reach at the light heavyweight division, which is actually only 3 inches more than the 6'3" Billy Elekana. But Christian, again, won his contract by submitting Francisco Mezzo by triangle armbar. Doesn't do much in that fight until he gets the submission. He's on bottom, and he gets, obviously, the armbar from there. Gets grounded in the first round. Mezzo gets the takedown, and Christian, again, is looking for sweeps. He's looking for reversals. He's looking for submissions. Can't get it. Second round, more to the same. Mezzo gets another takedown, and Christian pulls out the submission from the bottom. So a big victory for him, but, got the contract because, he's 6'7". He's a freak at 205 pounds. I think a little unproven, though. One fight in LFA, he won it by jumping knee. The official stat is jumping knee to the body and punches. He was a plus 300 dog in that fight and found a way to get the victory. Not overly impressed with his striking game. I think Elekana has a better striking base as a whole, too. Not that I'm all that impressed with Elekana. I mean, you look at his run prior to the UFC. It's nothing crazy. He fought in the PFL a couple times, fought in LFA. Big victory his biggest victory in PFL was over Chuck Campbell by split decision. So, I mean, there's a lot to be wanted out of Elekana, do not get me wrong. For Kevin Christian, I mean, again, I think a relatively unknown, in my opinion. I mean, other than his last 2 fights, he's fought in nothing but, random regionals in Brazil. I mean, how about Boa Vista Combat in Boa Vista, Romea, Brazil? Like, what? Yeah, again, the LFA victory's big, the Meso victory's huge, but he was getting out-grappled in that, out-wrestled in that fight before he pulled for the submission. Elekana did get subbed against Bogdan Guskov after getting a takedown, so I mean, that could happen. I think Elekana's better. I'm not too sold on Kevin Christian. I think he's kind of just here. I think kind of just here because of his height. And when you're off for a full year after winning a contract, I mean, the whole thing that Dana loves coming off the Contender Series is, okay, you win, you immediately jump back in there and you get a fight. I love guys who are active and want to stay in the octagon. That's what this show's built upon. This is why I do this every Tuesday night. There's no place I'd rather be on a Tuesday night than watching the Contender Series. And Dana's always adamant on the fact that you get a quick turnaround off the Contender Series. Again, look at Dante Johnson, who just won a contract this season, and he's fighting on the same card that Kevin Christian is after winning on 2024's Contender Series. I like Elekana in this spot. I don't like the inactivity. I think Billy's able to do just enough in the striking game, not take too many chances, and I think he should be able to outbox Kevin Christian in this fight. Would I bet on it? No. Again, I would not get close to Billy Elekana as a -225 favorite. I don't think he really should be that big of a. I don't even think he should be that big of a favorite in the first place. But I do expect him to win. I'm gonna go with the American and Billy Elekana to beat Kevin Christian by unanimous decision. We move on out to our next fight, still not on the main card yet, as we go to a matchup in the flyweight division. Are we in the main card? I don't think so. Yeah, no. Flyweight matchup here between Allan Nascimento and Rafael Estevam. Two Brazilians going at it in this fight. For Estevam, 14-0 professionally, still undefeated Nova Yao fighter who is 3-0 in the UFC but has missed weight in 2 fights so far at 125. And, the UFC usually says if you miss weight multiple times at a weight class, well, you go up. They said, nope, Estevam, you stay right there at 125 because you're going to be taking on Allan Nascimento, who also missed weight in his last fight. So, is this fight really going to be contested at 125 pounds? Or is this really going to be a catch weight 130? I mean, I'm just asking questions because I feel like it's going to be. Allan Nascimento in his fight against Jafel Filo, weighed in at 127.5 pounds, ended up winning the fight by unanimous decision over on that Blanchfield-Barber card that ended up not getting main evented by Blanchfield and Barber. I mean, it should have just been main evented by Gamrot and Klein the entire time, but it's okay. Nascimento misses weight, wins for Estevam, weighed at 130 pounds for his win over Felipe Bunes. Not the first time he missed weight in the UFC. His first fight against Charles Energy Johnson, he weighed in at 128 pounds. They had to reschedule it and say, oh, it's just a catchweight 128 fight. But no, it's because Estevam missed weight. Now, again, Rafael's undefeated so far in the UFC. It feels like one more weight miss for either of these guys, and they're going to be fighting in the bantamweight division. But Estevam's looked pretty good so far in the UFC. Have these been, overwhelming performances? No. But he's done enough to win. It's been pure grappling. I'm going to put you on your back, and you're going to have no answers. It's really what it is. Guys, the Estevam striking game is not great. We saw it on the Contender against Joao Elias, where he, it was really just grappling, though. It was a TKO finish, but my point is, he doesn't really do much damage. Like, again, he doesn't do anything in the striking game. Estevam's striking game, I'll be honest, we haven't seen it. It's pure grappling because no one's been able to stop that wrestling heavy attack. No one's been able to stop the jiu-jitsu. So why would Estevam switch it up? It makes sense, his game. I completely understand. But in his Contender Series fight, he goes out there and gets a finish in the second round. Then fights Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson outstrikes him 72-18, and Estevam goes, get this, 3 for 22 on his takedowns, but Estevam gets the victory. And then fights Jesus Aguilar. He shoots 19 times, gets 11 of those takedowns, wins a unanimous decision, and then beats Felipe Bunes, where he weighs in, again, 5 pounds over the limit. 5 for 9 on takedowns, 11 minutes of control, wins the fight. Now he gets Allan Nascimento, who is a good jiu-jitsu player. I really worry about his takedown defense, though. And now Nacimento, part of the reason why he gets taken down so much is because he's actually willing to engage in that grappling fight. He wants to be on his back so he can find sweeps, can find reversals, and can find submissions. As we've seen in every fight, really, that Nacimento's had so far in the UFC, he's been the one getting taken down. Well, actually, a couple of his fights. Taguir Ulanbekov, and especially in his last fight against Jafel Filo. Now, Nacimento eventually wins that fight because he actually sweeps Filo not once but twice in that fight and reverses positions. That's fine, but like again, Nacimento goes 1 for 6 on takedowns in that fight and 4 for 7 for Jafel Filo. Again, if you give Estevam 7 shots, I think he's going to be able to get those takedowns against Nacimento. Again, will Estevam do all that much damage once the fight hits the mat? No, it's not going to be entertaining. And I think again, Nacimento, a lot of his game is okay. I can get taken down, but I can still find submissions and I can still sweep you. I can get back. I can reverse positions and I can end up on top because again it's flyweight fighting, right? These guys are quick. The scrambles are insane. That again, that's just how 125 fights work. I get that, but I don't know. I'm not over the moon here about Allan Nascimento. I don't know why he's a favorite right now. And again, I'm recording this video on Thursday, right before or Friday, excuse me, right before the Cyril Gane and Tom Aspinall fight, but I don't know, man. I don't know why Estevam's a dog. I don't get it. Because stylistically, everything kind of turns out for a victory for him in this fight for me. I like the grappling game. I like the wrestling. And again, is it crowd pleasing? Is it entertaining? No, it's not. But he finds ways to win. And Nacimento has shown time in and time out he will get taken down. So why would anything be different here? I think Estevam gets it done. I'm going to go with Rafael Estevam to win the fight. He's 5 years younger than Nacimento too. Striking-wise, I don't even know who's a better striker because neither of these guys can really strike all that well. I think it would be Nacimento. I mean, we have not seen Nacimento go full force striking since, the Hallian Paiva fight on the Contender Series, and that was like 6 years ago. So, guys, this fight is somewhat of a mystery to me once, if it's just a pure striking fight, and it would be interesting to see what happens if it is. But I think, again, I'm going to take the undefeated guy in Estevam, who has been pure wrestling so far and has, gone out in one fight so far in the UFC and is undefeated. So I'm going to go Rafael Estevam. And, if he misses weight, who cares? Who cares? I hope he misses weight because that gives him an advantage. We're not cutting weight. We're going to the fight heavier. Both guys have trouble cutting weight. Don't get me wrong. Like, they might both miss weight. But if I'm picking Estevam here, I hope he misses weight. He'll have an advantage if he misses weight. So give me Rafael Estevam to beat Allan Nascimento by decision. I'm not too concerned about Estevam getting swept here. I think he's got good enough top control because it's really all he does. I'm going to take Estevam to beat Allan Nascimento by unanimous decision. We move on now to our next fight, and we go to a fun one. I believe this is now opening up the main card. Maybe the last fight was opening up the main card. I don't think. I think this is the main card opener. In the welterweight division, Charles Chuck Buffalo Radtke taking on Daniel Frunza. Frunza from Romania, now training out of Italy, gets Charles Radtke, 35 years of age, from Salem, Wisconsin. Someone's getting knocked out. Okay, and this is why this fight's in the main card. Not because these two guys are the most skilled fighters, not at all. It's because you can kind of guarantee a knockout here. Someone's getting put out, and I can get behind that. I can 100% get behind that. Radtke, you know what he does. It is caution to the wind. I'm going out here and I'm throwing. Every single UFC fight that Radtke's had since his UFC debut against Blood Diamond, where he, said some choice words after the fight, wasn't that something? Radtke's fights have all ended up in finishes. Gilbert Urbina fight, he knocked him out in the first round. He fought Carlos Prates. I wonder how that happened. I wonder what happened there. Prates knocked him out. He fought Matthew Semmelsberger, knocked him out in the first round, fought Mike Malott, got finished early in the second round. So every Radtke fight ends the same. It's either he's victorious or his opponent's staring at the lights, or he's staring at the lights. Again, it's one or the other. He's taking on Daniel Frunza, who's had one fight so far in the UFC, and he got dropped non-stop against Rhys McKee. It's probably the best Rhys McKee we have ever seen. Earlier this year, Rhys McKee dropped Daniel Frunza 3 times in one round, to the point where the doctors went, okay, no more. Yeah, Frunza took a damn beating in that fight. Frunza was throwing back too, don't get me wrong, but he just kept getting dropped. McKee kept sitting on his punches and kept putting him down every single opportunity. Every time Frunza entered in, boom, he's getting put down. Ooh, don't love that. And sure, he's had enough time off. Don't get me wrong. That fight was in April. We're now obviously, hell, this card's November 1st. But, if you just got knocked down 3 times in the span of 5 minutes in your last fight against Rhys McKee, who can be good at his best day, but the thing is, we don't really see with Rhys McKee all the time. We don't get his best day. But if you're getting dropped 5 times by Rhys McKee or 3 times by Rhys McKee in 5 minutes, what the hell's going to happen when you fight Charles Radtke? Now, don't get me wrong, right? Radtke's killer be killed. Like in every fight where I say, oh, Radtke probably wins by knockout, there's a very good chance Radtke could step into getting knocked out at the same exact time. I completely understand the risks with picking a Charles Radtke fight, but Radtke, if I can guarantee anything out of a Chuck Buffalo fight, is that he's going to try to put his opponent out, and he's going to try to knock his opponent out. That's what Daniel Frunza is going to end up with this week. I think Frunza is getting knocked down in the first. Again, just getting dropped 3 times in one round is absurd. And again, he had a doctor stoppage once that fight hit the stool. Radtke's won fights in the UFC before. I mean, I've seen Radtke knock out Arbinia, knock out Semmelsberger, and he's been able to do both those in the first round. Yes, is he the most skilled fighter? No. He's a brawler, which is fine. He has grappling too, don't get me wrong. He grappled Blood Diamond, won a CFFC championship by grappling, but the way Radtke wants to fight is stand up, and that's okay, because that should and will be there against Daniel Frunza. I don't think Frunza switches it up and looks to wrestle. This is a striker in his own right, who has 8 knockout victories. Radtke's got 5. I just don't think Frunza's all that UFC level after his last bout. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Reese McKee has totally changed it up, but I mean, Reese McKee I just saw lose to Axel Sola in Sola's UFC debut, so, I mean, Reese McKee's a 1-5 fighter. The one victory is Frunza. I think Radtke easily takes care of him, and I'm very surprised is that minus 130. I get it, it's because of the fight style of Radtke, and he's a 10-5 fighter, but I gotta go with Radtke here. Frunza just looks so bad in his first UFC fight, so I'm gonna go with the American here, training out of MMA Masters. Charles Radtke picks up the victory by first-round knockout over the Romanian in Frunza. On to our next fight, and we go to a matchup here between Yadier Del Valle and Isaac Dulgarian in the featherweight division. Del Valle, a slight dog on the money line and the odds for this fight, but on Tapology, 66% of voters are taking I think it's Cuban, I believe. Yes, the Cuban in Yadier Del Valle, while again only 34% on the other side are taking Isaac Dulgarian. Now, Dulgarian has won before in the UFC, obviously, right? And for Del Valle, he has 2. Won his first fight in the promotion against Connor Matthews. He's 9-0, but Dulgarian is the favorite in this fight, and he's 7-1 professionally, and he is 2-1 in the UFC with the victory over Brandon Marat in his last fight. That was a year ago. A split decision loss, Christian Rodriguez in there, and again, C-Rod's difficult, and then a victory over Francis Marshall in his first UFC bout. Dulgarian, I mean, I'll always remember Isaac Dulgarian for the FAC card, where it's FAC, Dana White looking for a fight, Nelk is there, they're gonna make, we're gonna have our first full Sen fighter, let's get Sendy, we're gonna give, someone's gonna be a Nelk fighter, and they chose Dulgarian, and according to Isaac Dulgarian, they're trying to scam him out of his money, apparently. I don't know entirely how that story went, but there has not been a Nelk full Sen fighter since they tried to make Isaac Dulgarian the first. Anyways, though, since going out there and beating TJ Britton for the FAC championship, he, again, got a finish against Francis Marshall in the very first round. Impressive. Dulgarian gets a takedown and just completely hammers Marshall from there. After that, again, fight C-Rod. Dulgarian, grappling heavy approach. Damage wins fights, I guess. Dulgarian is on top of C-Rod for every minute of the first 2 rounds, but they gave the victory to C-Rod. A little controversial, but it is what it is. And you can, I don't really care that much. There was a point deduction in there too. And then Dulgarian beats Brandon Marat in his last fight, submitted him in the second round. Again, wrestle heavy approach, literally took down Marat 3 seconds into the fight because he ended up with 4 minutes and 57 seconds of control in the first round, and then over 4 minutes of control in the second round. Dulgarian obviously winning the fight by second round sub. So that's why he's a favorite here, is because, when Dulgarian's at his best and when Dulgarian is executing on his game plan, it's very simple. It's, I'm wrestle heavy, you're not getting up. Again, a physically very strong guy for 145 pounds, and that style is just tough to overcome. Yadier Del Valle, big victory in his first fight over Connor Matthews, got it takedown and got the submission. Connor Matthews is very low level, though. I mean, that entire New England cartel team is very fraudulent. Anyone who comes out of fighting at a combat zone or cage titans, I really bat an eye. I really look at and just how good are you? Because that, northeastern region, the New England region, is known for, can crushers. And that's what Connor Matthews unfortunately was. Came into the UFC, went 0-3, and now he's gone. Del Valle finished him very quickly, and that fight felt very set up for Del Valle. He was a minus 550 favorite against a guy who hadn't won yet in the UFC. And Del Valle's fight to get in the UFC was a Contender Series bout against Antonio Montero, winning the fight by decision, where he outstruck Montero. That's the pathway to beat Dulgarian, in my opinion. I mean, we saw C-Rod kind of do it. even though that fight was very wrestling heavy, but, C-Rod ended up winning the fight because he did more damage. That's why they gave him the cards. That's what Yadier Del has to do. He has to keep the fight standing against Dulgarian, and he has to keep striking. He has to keep, again, just throwing things out there and affecting the wrestling base and game of Isaac Dulgarian. I just think it's a tough thing to do, man. I mean, watch that Dulgarian Brandon Marat fight. It is dominant. And is Brandon Marat that good? No. Is he also from New England cartel and was an absolute, I'm not calling the guy a loser, but he was a loser in the UFC. Yes, he was. So again, that's just how the New England cartel works. But that's what Dulgarian can be at his very best. Now, again, both these guys are coming off of cartel victories, New England cartel victories. So I don't really know how to rank them because neither of their last wins are all that great. I think this is a Dulgarian win, though. The odds, again, I personally, if I hadn't looked at the odds, I would say it should be around even. And I'd probably go with Dulgarian ever so slightly. But seeing these odds and seeing minus 190 for Dulgarian at open, it's like, I don't know. It's not even at open. This is how, line's been affected a little bit, changed a little bit. Something we don't know about this fight. That's what I always point out when I say, okay, why are the odds this crazy? Like, again, I think Dulgarian should win, but minus 2-1 favorite's kind of nuts. There's probably something we don't know about this fight. And also, again, Del Val's one victory is against a cartel guy. At least Dulgarian has a win against Francis Marshall, who is not from the New England cartel, and looked really good in the Francis Marshall fight. So we know what Dulgarian can be at his best day. Del Val, again, very fun fighter. He can throw a lot out there. Volume's big with him, a lot of output. But I think Dulgarian gets some. I think the wrestling heavy approach is going to give Del Val problems. I'm going to go Isaac Dulgarian, the Midwest Choppa, to beat the Cuban problem Yadier Del Val by unanimous decision. We move on now to our feature bout of the night, and we move to a fight that might be the co-main event. I'm seeing on Tapology it's the co-main event, but the UFC's official website, it's the feature bout. I think the heavyweight bout between Delija and Cortes-Acosta is going to be the co-main. So here we are, Jeremiah Wells taking on Themba Gorimbo. It should be interesting. I mean, Gorimbo's a guy who had a lot of hype around him. Obviously was MMA Masters guy for a while. Got kicked out of the gym, I think, because of he wasn't paying his coaches according to Colby Covington, and Colby didn't like him either, so they kicked Themba out. But prior to that, or I think, did Colby say that he was like faking being broke? I don't know if that's real or I don't know if I actually heard Colby say that or not, because there was a big thing made obviously out of Themba Gorimbo when after he beat Brahima. I think it was after he beat Brahima. He was a 2-0 UFC or 3-0 UFC fighter. It might have been after Rodriguez fight. He was 2-0 and he said, "Well, I'm broke. I have like $15. I'm sleeping in the gym." And Dwayne Johnson came to MMA Masters and gave him a boatload of money. And there was some big thing. The UFC promoted it quite a bit. Again, The Rock. That was before the TKO merger, I think. But it was a big story. Themba then gets kicked out of the gym eventually. I don't know if it was the paying the trainers part or just he was being a dick. I don't know which one it was, but I know Colby's talked bad on him, and I know Colby talks bad about a lot of people, but I know, again, he was relatively close with Gorimbo. And Themba, since leaving MMA Masters, I believe was 0-1, fought Vicente Luque. I think he was still with MMA Masters when he fought Nico Price, and he won. But recently fought Vicente Luque in December of 2024. Got subbed in the first round. It was a huge opportunity for Themba Gorimbo. He was a favorite to beat Luque. I honestly thought Gorimbo was going to win. My mindset on him was, well, it's kind of now or never. You're 33 years old. If you're going to make that push, here it is. You're getting a top 15 name and a well-established name. And hell, I mean, we've seen Luque fight since, obviously, right? We saw Luque fight Joel Alvarez, and Alvarez probably should have got a first-round finish if they didn't call the low blow when it wasn't. But anyways, right? Huge opportunity for Gorimbo. Cash in on it. Pay-per-view card. You're on, the last pay-per-view of the year. You're on ESPN fighting, and he lost. He got subbed in the first round to Gorimbo by Vicente Luque with an anaconda choke. And that really stunted any momentum he had built. I mean, he was, 4-1 in the UFC up until that point, but 4 straight wins over Takashi Sato, Pete Rodriguez, Ramiz Brahimaj, and Nico Price. And you get subbed by, no chin, washed up Vicente Luque. Brutal. So now he's back here against Jeremiah Wells. Gorimbo is a favorite over Wells, who's 4-2 in the UFC, but coming off back-to-back losses and has not won a fight in the UFC since 2023, where he beat Matthew Semmelsberger by split decision. Again, if you remember that fight, really odd. Wells dominates the fight grappling and literally just ground Semmelsberger the entire fight, other than 2 moments in the first and second round where Semmelsberger drops him, which I thought, because Wells did no damage, was enough to win Semmelsberger those 2 rounds. I thought Semmelsberger probably should have won the fight 2-1. rewatching it. I've gone back and forth on that quite a bit. The way I stand now with damage-based scoring and my new mindset, it's just my current mindset about mixed martial arts, I believe my forever mindset now, is that damage should win fights, and just laying and praying doesn't win you bouts. So, Semi the Jedi probably should have won that fight, but what does Wells do well in that fight? Well, he scramble wrestles whenever he gets into trouble. Immediately, he's going to shoot for legs, he's going to attack the hips, and he's going to try to bring the fight down. So I can't knock a guy for that. I mean, that's just executing a game plan and being safe in there. But we have not seen Jeremiah Wells look really impressive since, I don't know, it was win over Court McGee, where he knocked out McGee in the first round. Now, again, that was kind of an outlier because Court McGee was still fighting, but Court McGee at 38, 39, 40, wherever he was at the time of that fight and whatever he is now, not a very developed, he's never been a very developed striker, but still, again, at this age, not a guy who's going to give you much problems on the feet. And his chin is getting worse, obviously, taking all this damage, all these camps, and Wells knocked him out. But back-to-back fights now for Jeremiah Wells, where he lost to Carlston Harris, lost to Max Griffin. The Harris loss got subbed in the third round. Wells was pretty dominant up until that point. A lot of top control, had 10 minutes of top control as of the time of the submission, and Harris found a way to get the Anaconda choke. The Max Griffin fight, very competitive fight, very boring fight. It could have gone either way, but I mean, whoever lost that fight really could not be that pissed off that you lost because nothing happened. Jeremiah Wells did outstrike Max Griffin in that fight, but the final significant strike count was 32 to 26 in favor of Wells. I think Themba can win with his volume here. I think he can. I'm looking at Gorimbo, man. If he can win with volume and outpace Jeremiah Wells, he can keep him guessing here because I think Themba is good enough to remain, competent, remain competitive on the feet. And if he needs to grapple too, he should have it. The wrestling should be there for Gorimbo. And I look at Jeremiah Wells. He's 39. He's 39 years of age. Gorimbo's still 34. And yeah, again, major setback in the Luque loss, but it is what it is. Again, you lose right away. Luque, again, immediately finds the Anaconda fight as soon as the fight, Anaconda choke as soon as the fight hits the mat. It is what it is. Like, I think Gorimbo is still better than Jeremiah Wells. I think the volume should be big in this fight, and I haven't seen Jeremiah Wells win in 3 years. So why wouldn't I go with Gorimbo here, guys? Gorimbo's entire run has been through the inactivity and not even inactivity, the losing streak of Jeremiah Wells. I expect Wells to probably wrestle, but I think Themba's good enough defensively to stay off of those takedowns and stay out of a lot of those grappling exchanges. I think Themba should eventually. I don't think he gets a knockout. But I think Themba, I think Themba's volume is gonna be too much, and I think Themba will go out there and outstrike Jeremiah Wells. I'm gonna go with the fighter out of Zimbabwe, now training out of Miami, Florida, Themba Gorimbo, to beat Jeremiah Wells by unanimous decision. On to the co-main event in the heavyweight division. Tom Aspinall's good pal, Ante Delija, taking on Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Now, Dana is officially, he knows now about Ante Delija. Not because of his fights, not because, former PFL champion, no. He knows of Ante Delija because now he's the guy that Aspinall saying he would vacate the title for if Delija ever got to a world championship opportunity. I guarantee you the UFC now is not going to allow Delija to get anywhere close to that belt. They will give him the toughest next fight imaginable, and they will give him... So let's see who's tough for Delija. They will give him... They're going to give him Walter Walker. No, he can stop takedowns. They're going to give him Sergey Pavlovich. I don't think Delija can beat Pavlovich. I know Pavlovich is more of a decision points monster now. I think that... Oh, no. They're going to give him Volkov. Oh, 100%. They will give Delija Volkov coming off a loss. That makes so much sense. Or actually, I don't know what happened yet. I'm assuming that Almeida won. We'll see. If Volkov loses to Almeida, I believe they're going to give Volkov Delija. Because Dana now has been made aware that Aspinall has said, if Delija ever gets close to the belt, I'm going to vacate the belt. Because I'm not going to fight my friend, and I want my friend to get a chance to fight for the world championship. Now, what will the circumstances be when that actually happens? I don't know. Obviously, again, Aspinall, and again, there's a very slim chance Cyril Gane's the champion right now. But what I'm getting to is that the UFC is not going to allow Delija to get anywhere near the world championship. If this is the case, and Tom has said it is the case. Anyways, Delija's fight here against Waldo Cortes-Acosta is extremely winnable. Delija looked really good in his last bout, beating Marcin Tybura. I had my doubts because, I've watched Delija through his entire PFL run. All right, I might be the PFL's biggest fan, and it's not even like I'm that big of a fan. I just watch all of their cards because they're on ESPN. I liked World Series when it happened. I had a lot of fun back in the day watching NBC Sports Network where Justin Gaethje and Lance the Party Palmer were having fights. Those are the days, right? So I've always been a big World Series guy, and I, obviously have watched PFL, and they're the only other big American promotion left, obviously after they acquired Bellator, and they've done a bad job with that. But anyways, like, I've watched PFL, and I have consistently watched PFL. So I've seen the entire Delija run. I'm old enough to remember when Delija was booked to fight Cyril Gane in his UFC debut, but had to pull out, or they pulled him because of contract disputes. And so you immediately went to PFL, got knocked out by Bruno Capelozza in his first fight, ended up getting a rematch against Capelozza for the World Championship and lost a 5-round decision. Delia's entire thing in PFL was, in that first season was he was just, second best. Next year, he comes out, wins the title because he beats Matus Scheffel. And then the reason why I picked Tabura to beat him, it's like Valentin Moldavsky knocked him out. And this is not, 2022 Moldavsky who's going on a run. 2025 and 2024 Valentin Moldavsky is nothing all that impressive. I mean, I was in person watching him get knocked out by Linton Vassell in San Jose, California. Like, I'm not wowed with anything Moldavsky does anymore. And Moldavsky knocked out Ante Delija. What? And I know, again, Delia's last fight looked really good. He knocked out Marcin Tybura. Stylistically, I guess that's not a bad fight. Because if Tybura couldn't take down Delija, and he didn't, and he really never shot one, and the fight only lasted 2 minutes, well, yeah, it's probably how that fight's going to go. Because Tybura probably can't outstrike Ante. Waldo Cortes-Acosta can outstrike Ante Delija. Waldo doesn't take many chances. He did go 3 rounds with Pavlovich, and again, Pavlovich, kind of a decision monster now, kind of a decision machine now, but Waldo went in there and, fought his own. He didn't win, got outstruck, but did go 15 minutes with Sergey, who at one point in time was the most feared guy at 265 pounds. I've seen Waldo go out there and outclass Sergey Spivak, and again, Sergey's a wrestler, but still went out there, leg kicked the crap out of him, outboxed him, out-kickboxed him for 15 minutes. I saw Waldo knock out Ryan Spann. Like, I know it's there. So, here's my thing about Delija. I just don't think he's that highly... I don't think he's that highly ranked of a UFC fighter. Again, he beats Tybura, which I thought Tybura was going to beat him. I'm not going to dispute that. But in hindsight, that is a good entry-level fight for him. Because as long as he's able to keep the fight standing, there's no danger of getting knocked out. Waldo, I don't think... There's no danger of Waldo knocking him out, but there's a chance Waldo just out-jabs him, out-punches him, and out-volumes Ante the entire fight, and that's kind of what I feel like is going to happen here. Yeah, a lot of people are Ante by knockout, but I really think, again, Salsa Boy, and he throws a fastball of a right hand. I think Acosta wins. I think Waldo Cortes-Acosta gets it done. And again, going 3 rounds with Sergey is not really the compliment, I guess, that it used to be. All right, what once could have been, but I don't think if Pavlovich, who I know is not hunting knockouts anymore, but if Sergey doesn't knock out Cortes-Acosta, I don't think Delija does either. And I think the leg kick's going to be big for Waldo. I think the jab's going to be huge. I'm going to go with Waldo Cortes-Acosta from the Dominican Republic, now training out of Phoenix, Arizona. I'm taking Waldo to get it done by unanimous decision over the Croatian Ante Delija in the co-main event. I know Dana's going to be cheering for Cortes-Acosta as well. Main event time. First main event spot at even odds for Steve the Mean Machine Garcia and David Onama at 145 pounds. A big opportunity for both guys, do not get me wrong. A spot that I didn't really think we were going to ever see Steve Garcia or David Onama in, but Garcia did call his shot once upon a time, did say, I'd love to get a main event of a UFC Apex card, which is not a goal you usually see fighters wanting, but Garcia called his shot, and he got it against David Onama. Again, Garcia, if I'm not mistaken, ranked 13th right now in the featherweight division. David Onama ranked 14th in the featherweight division. Now, Steve Garcia used to be on a huge knockout streak. He had the biggest knockout streak, I believe not just in the featherweight division. No, I think it was in the featherweight division. He had the longest knockout streak active in the featherweight division up until his last fight where he fought Calvin Kattar. He had won 5 consecutive fights by knockout after getting knocked out in Singapore against Maha Shed at UFC 275. Garcia went on a run, knocked out Chase Hooper, knocked out Shailan Nordembeka, knocked out Melt Costa, finished Sungwoo Choi, and knocked out Kyle Nelson as well en route to a Calvin Kattar fight, where I thought he was going to put Kattar down. He won a decision. Okay, it is what it is. Did knock down Kattar in the fight, and Kattar kind of, didn't throw anything throughout the entire fight. Again, Garcia found that knocked down late, but Steve won the fight 30-27 in the Apex. No, actually in Nashville, Tennessee. And now here he is. Apex main event. Good on him. Like, that's what he wanted, and he's going to get it. It's a big opportunity for him. He's on the marquee. He's on the poster. Hell, I'm making a whole video that's titled UFC Fight Night Garcia versus Onama Predictions. And sure, it's a, not a very high star level type fight, I understand, but look at the main event next week with Bonfim and Randy Brown. But here comes David Onama. Onama is, again, a 6'2" fighter training out of Glory MMA and Fitness, the James Krause gym, or at least used to be the James Krause gym. And he's on a 4-fight win streak, beating Gabriel Santos by knockout, beating JSP, Jonathan Pierce, Roberto Romero, and Giga Chikadze. I actually thought Chikadze beat Onama. I thought so. I thought it was close. I don't know if I can say he won, but Giga definitely wins the first round. That third round, man, Onama does nothing with the takedown. I'm like, I thought Giga was doing more damage. Yeah, again, Onama, you can say, secures the round with that takedown, but I wasn't overly impressed by what Onama did over in Kansas City, and that's kind of summed up the entire Onama run for me. Early in his UFC run, great stuff, right? I mean, knocked out Benitez, submitted Garrett Armfield, like a minus 1,000 favorite. Ran to Nate Landwehr, lost, but great fight, beat Santos, and then, okay, got out grappled by JSP, but found a way to win the decision. Good fight against Roberto Romero, don't get me wrong, but then, all right, does he really beat Giga? I don't know. And it's, it's out there, like, Onama's gas tank is not great. James Krause actually, I believe, said this once after he left, or, like, was, I don't know, like, being searched by the FBI, just like Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier. But he had said at one point in time, like, Onama's cardio, he doesn't really train that hard. Like, as the fight goes on, like, he's going to wear down. He's not really a 5-round fighter. But, of course, I always kind of disputed that because I'm like, okay, well, Onama's not in a 5-round fight. 3 rounds, 15 minutes. Like, he's good for the first 12 and a half minutes, and it's fine. Like, that's good enough to win 3-round fights. We're actually in a position where David Onama's fighting a 25-minute fight. Now, I don't know if the fight goes that long, but Onama, again, it has to do with his pace, too, because Onama just throws a lot. And tries to get you out of there very early. He overswings, and obviously if you're putting that much into your shots early, that's not going to really result in the best, in the best success to win a 25-minute bout. I completely understand that. Maybe there's a different approach. Obviously, I would expect a more measured approach for Onama in this fight in the main event, in a 5-round main event. But Onama does get hit quite a bit, and Garcia throws hard. And you look at the run Steve Garcia has been on, this guy doesn't take that much damage. He's, again, since the Mahashet win, Garcia has been much better, at least, defending, being cautious of where his chin is. I like this fight a lot for the Mean Machine. I do. I think Garcia knocks out Onama in the first round. I think Onama is too wild when he throws, and it should create for a lot of opportunities, in my opinion, for Steve Garcia. I mean, I've been thinking Garcia is going to win this fight ever since this fight was made. Again, odds are even. I'm jumping all over Steve Garcia right now. I don't understand why the odds are that close. You look at Tapology, 83% of voters are taking the American Steve Garcia to get the win, and that's exactly how I feel about it. If the fight does get into deep waters, and the fight does go late, okay, I think Onama is probably going to wear out eventually, because, again, just the style of fight that he fights. Onama is going to look to put away Steve Garcia with every shot that he throws. Garcia necessarily isn't looking for knockouts. He just throws hard and puts you down. That's the difference in these two fighters, in my opinion. Like, again, Onama's definitely got a puncher's chance. He 100% can, get lucky and, throw something huge and put down Garcia. But I like Garcia early. I actually like Garcia late in the fight, too. I like Garcia wherever the hell this fight goes. Again, regardless of if it gets dragged out and Garcia needs to play, or needs to fight a cautious fight style and win the fight like in a decision like in the Cater fight, or just go out there and get it done. I like Garcia in both ways, and I don't understand why the odds are even either. So I think Steve Garcia gets it done. To me, this fight's been kind of made for Garcia. He wanted the Apex main event. He got the Apex main event, and I think he's going to capitalize on that opportunity. I believe he goes out there and knocks out David Onama in his first ever UFC main event. Give me Steve the Mean Machine Garcia to finish and knock out David Onama in the very first round. Folks, thank y'all for watching our UFC Fight Night Garcia versus Onama full card predictions from the UFC Apex. If you have not yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you did. Good thing. The picks will be back on Thursday for our best bets for this card as well. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.